Hello, everyone. All right, we back. Another Sunday, another show. Um, this week we're gonna talk about the Lieutenant Governor, Mark Robinson. Um, this is a pretty good topic that we're gonna discuss today. Um, we once again, I always like to do the introductions. If you're here, hit that like, that subscribe bell, hit the notification button so you can get notifications when the show comes on. Hit the thumbs up. That's totally free. It don't cost anybody anything to hit that subscribe button, to hit thumbs up. Um, it's a group of us working together to try to bring this information to you. So all we ask is that you at least hit subscribe and hit the thumbs up button. Um, I don't know how many people know of Mark Robinson. He is the lieutenant governor, which is one of the most second powerful one of the politicians here in North Carolina. And he also was one of the first ADOS lieutenant governor. So, which I say ADOS, but the truth, he's probably struggling himself with who he really is. But he did he had an interview the other day. The interview caught a couple of our attentions because he used some very strong words and that a lot of us talk about. Um, and one of those words was what's going on in the schools with our kids. Now, I don't know how many parents out there that are really engaged with their kids at the school. Um, Here at ADOS, we got some parents that are really engaged with their kids at school. Um, and it's definitely a lot of indoctrination going on. It's a lot of fact versus opinion going on, where the opinion end up and outweigh the facts. So what we are attempting to do here is to say, we know it's a problem in the school when it comes to the indoctrination, and also we know very well too with the lies that are being told, and know and understand that it's stated in the school as to this day. To pass on a test, that you got to say Christopher Columbus discovered America, when we already know America was already occupied by other people, and they had just arrived to a new place themselves, didn't discover anything. But this is still being taught in school. Also, it's still being taught in school that is that slaves won't slaves, that they was immigrants, and, and and know how dangerous this is when we talk about slaves being identified as immigrants. Immigrants voluntarily came to America. Slavery was forced here by chains and whips. That's the first thing we need to understand, these different definitions. While we want specifically to identify ourselves as American descendants of slaves, because we are a certain group with a certain specific injustice that has happened to this group. But if within our school system, if our school system are teaching our kids that they are so much of immigrant, they could erase slavery from the history. And I think dominantly that's what their goal is to erase the fact that my father was a sharecropper, forced to quit school in the second grade. That my mother also had to quit school in the seventh grade because of sharecropping. And I'm gonna have my mom do a show to tell her story so she can tell her story. Cause we need to hear these stories. A lot of times within family, these stories are not told. So that also causes the history to be lost. And I see my brother David in the chat. I want to say what's up to him. Glad he's here, because that's another thing we try to do. We try to get more of our family involved with these conversations, because the real battle the battle starts within the family. It's reaching out to family, convincing family that, hey, it ain't your fault in what you're doing here. What has happened is you come from the descendants of slaves. You don't come from the descendants of slave owners. So the discussion must be had. I got Leroy here in the chat. I got Johnny. I just like to call out some of the people that say things in the chat because a lot of these people work with me to get this information out to our people to try to educate. So that's what we want to do here with my show. We want to become the pillar in the community that black ADOS people will be able to come and count on us to give them the right place to stand, the right place to be at, who they may listen to and who they may have to watch out for. So here today is we got the topic at hand is the lieutenant governor, and it's a pretty hot topic. It's definitely gonna get very, very interesting here. He is like I said before, he one of the first. I want to kind of touch on. He was born in Greensboro, North Carolina. He's 52 years old. I think that's right. I think that's what I read. So, and he bringing a lot of things. It's one of the conflicts that I think conflicts with us is about him is he is a Republican, but on top of him being a Republican, he's a conservative Republican. Now, one of the things we push here is becoming critical thinkers. Understand this man is in a position of power that can help or hurt you. The problem is where the hurt come from is that a lot of times what is happening is if people struggling with their own identity as what anchors them, you're gonna get some weird things going on. Like when he says he is a conservative. Personally, we know what do he have to conserve, being that he come from slavery. He come from slaves, not slave owners, who want to conserve slavery. So we got to be careful with when we look at people. So what we want to do, we want to look at this man and give him a good balanced evaluation. He brought up a good topic about school, and we do want to touch on the topic he brought about school, and bring it to the forefront because we got to be able to reach our kids. So the article is here. As you see in this article, we got Governor Mark Robinson launches a new website to report indoctrination in North Carolina public schools. So this is definitely what he said, and hey, we definitely, like I said before, we definitely that is needed. The one of the biggest things we are worrying about with after he launched this, will a good thing come out of it. Now, as we see here, we got Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson says some parents, kids, and educators have concerns over what's being taught in North Carolina public schools. So on Tuesday, he launched the FASTS task force on an official government page. So what he's doing, he got a task force, and what the job of this task force is going to be is to go to different schools, find out what these schools are doing, what are they educating these kids in, and he wanted to be more fact than opinion, which here at ADOS we find that it's a positive, because if the fact be brought out, the truth must come with it. And some of us here at ADOS feel like when that truth and those facts come out, it may even change who he is. So, and it possibly can. Sometimes they say the truth will set you free, and this may be one of those moments that the truth sets you free. So we hoping that be the case. We got another part of the article here that's it's talking about hold up here, I got it too small. Hold on just 1 second. Let me fix that. Okay. If I go into the classroom and I cannot put my opinion aside long enough to go inside the classroom and give impressionable young minds just the facts without my opinion. Now we're gonna stop right there. Cause understand what is said there is it's definitely a good point. We're gonna read it over again. It said, if I can't go into a classroom, and I can't put my opinions to the side. And I mean, cause once again I said the schools are trying to put opinion over facts. So we agree with him on this. Aside long enough to go inside the classroom and give an impressionable young mind just the facts without my opinion. I failed as an educator. Robertson said during a news interview. Now we know and understand what he said here is truth. It's truth to it. So we have that part of the article we definitely agree with. And we gonna keep reading because hey, he got to always go deeper into it, So also in this article it says FACTS stands for fairness, accountability in the classroom for teachers and students. That's what fairness stands for. FACTS stands for. FACTS stands for fairness and accountability in the classroom for teachers and students. Concerns people can submit online include examples of discrimination or harassment, examples of students being influenced by political opinions, ideologies, and proof of inappropriate context of subject matters. During this news, well, now understand when we see the concerned people, they can submit things online. Online referring to this situation. So that's a good thing because it gives us so much insight now into the classroom as to what other people are experiencing around the state with the different schools. Because now they got to take ADOS with ADOS breaking the mental chain, we base everything based in data. Data bring forth facts. We tie it to our history, to our lineage, to policies to bring forth those facts. So that's why this article is so important to us, because we know if they use this information right, we could get a whole new way of doing education when it comes to our kids. So as a sample, right, you take it like this, right? Some people will say that, well, I think it should be at home where your kids get taught their history. Well, it's a piece of the puzzle you're leaving out. At home is an adult that used to be a child that also was part of the indoctrination. So that means the parent is just as lost on the history as the child is. Because the same broken education system taught them. So what we got to understand is it didn't just start with your child. It started with you. It started with your parents. Unlike my mom and dad, 7th grade education, my dad was forced out in the 2nd grade. My mama in the 7th. very little education, both parents. But some of you have parents that was in school a lot longer. So they got indoctrinated because nobody cared. The, the truth what we got to understand is that the Sisters of the Confederate was over the school system and what was going to be taught and what was not going to be taught. So when we dive into it, we got to dive into it for real. We got to open the windows of truth to be able to see it. So I'm gonna go to this next article here. Now we say here, students was not allowed to write. Now, and so I'm gonna read this. Student was not allowed to write a report on him for Black history. Her teacher would not allow her to do that and told her that she had to do her report on Tupac Shakur. That is indoctrination. That Robinson said that. He said that is indoctrination. Now, and I agree with him on that because the way we should be able to do is be free with what we want to talk on in that classroom. But maybe the teacher don't like Robinson. By her not liking Robinson and maybe liking Tupac Shakur, she'd rather for the student to write on Tupac Shakur. Now, some may even say this is a moment for Robinson to stroke his own ego. Maybe he's a self-centered person. And that upset him and set him in motion to say, hey, we need to investigate the schools on indoctrination. Good or bad thing. You may see it that way, but at the end, can we get a good outcome from it? I think ultimately we want a good outcome from it. So we'll read further on down. It says the task force wants to collect data. See this word data. See this word is saying we're gonna go in, we're gonna find out how many schools are doing this kind of thing, which bring forth the facts, the truth, and then determine which complaints are most urgent. Because basically they're saying they're going to take that data, they're going to use that data to determine, hey, which one of these topics are most urgent in these classrooms. Now, here's where it gets a little muddy to me because they can look at the data and say, the data could be showing history is an urgency. It's too much line going on in history and not enough facts. Now we got to say, we need to hold him accountable to say, hey, the truth must be told. You know? So, and that's what this show is about. Can we hold the fire to him to stand on his square when the truth needs to be told and how that truth needs to be delivered? It says also down in the next part, it say we will know how we're going to tackle this after we get this information and distinguish it, said Robinson. We need to make sure that our equality in the classroom makes sure people are treated fairly. The Education Center, excuse me, as I said, Robinson, task force is unnecessary. Spokesperson said in a statement, there is. Okay, we got another part to it. Equality treatment of Black, Indigenous, and other students of color. We don't really care about that people, that students of color, because color is not a race. It's not a race. So that this in itself shows you how effective doctrine is with the language that people use a lot of times. But anyway, in some of our schools, especially as it relates to suspension, expulsions, and referrals to law enforcement, we can look at the data collect yearly that shows the disparities. We think the Lieutenant Governor Task Force would be better served to look at real incident inequality in our public schools. That's what the other place is saying I think they should do something else. to look at it. Robinson didn't name all of the 12 task force members during the news conference, but he does include Senator Kevin Corby, Representative David Willis, and State School Board member Oliver, who, like the Lieutenant Governor, they are conservatives. So all of them are kind of conservatives. Our members are so these are some people he's saying that he may put on the task force. So I think we need to make sure that we be a voice in the room who we think should be on that task force. Because you don't want if Robinson do pick people that just agrees with him, they won't we might not get the right outcome. So that's something can be looked into. How do they determine who's gonna be on that task force? I'm looking over here in the chat. I'm gonna see what some people got to say over here in the chat from what I done read from the article. So I see over Johnny in the chat says Daughters of the Confederate wrote the history books in the South post-Civil War to push the lost cause narrative. So that's exactly right. They actually and they ain't play no games about it neither. They actually would blackball, even if other whites wanted to get the truth in the school system, they would blackball them and let them know you'll be blackballed and you won't be part of anything if you think we're gonna put this in here. So they use any bit of power they could to keep the truth out. So this is definitely a topic that we want to be around. We want to be paying attention to. Now, the governor, like I said, he's the first ADOS governor. The question I have for him, can we get him to sit at the table with ADOS and have a real conversation about what he spoke on? ADOS has reached out to commissioners that have reached back out to us and sat at the table and talked with us. He too is just a public servant. So what we would like for him to do is sit at the table with us. Let's talk about this topic about what's going on in the school and how far are you willing to move the line for justice. I watched a video of him on PBS, and on the video, it started off good in his conversation with the lady that was interviewing him from PBS, but it took a bad turn, as you would like to. I would like to word it. The question asked about systematic racism, and he's working to remove that from the books altogether. He said it ain't needed. And now understand that systematic racism ties racism to the institution of slavery. If you remove systematic racism, you erase slavery. You turn it into as if slavery was kind of like one's opinion to even be a slave or one opinion to own a slave, instead of tying it to the institution that slavery was. So we need to understand that when you get this, when he may not understand himself that he's been indoctrinated, when he don't know himself, maybe in the conversation he having right now, he's conflicting with one thing versus another. And that happens a lot if we don't understand that one thing is tied to another. Systematic racism is tied to the institution of slavery. And to say that don't exist any longer, that blacks don't get this, that ADOS people don't get discriminated when it comes to hiring. All the data say they do. So when if all the data says that when it comes to an ADOS person getting a job and a white person getting a job, that white person gonna get that job over a black person. That's systematic racism. See, when it comes to education, to say now in 2020 blacks got a first slate at the table, but all the data says no, they don't, because we know the data states. Well, if you don't know and you hear, you knew. Understand the data states this, that even within the education system, you can have a black child that graduate from college with a master's degree and a white child that graduate with that master's degree. That black child will make about $155,000 a year. That white child will make about $455,000 a year. That's the data. That's systematic racism. And I tie it to education because a lot of times part of the pushback we get is that education will fix it. Education will fix it. It will not fix it because the institution is still here. The institution and the way it was designed is still set up and still operational as it always have been. What has happened is we have been sold a delusion something has changed. But all the data says it still remains the same. When we talk about systematic ties to slavery, Jim Crow redline, I'm reading this out of the chat. Well, Johnny wrote in the chat, systematic ties to slavery, Jim Crow redlining, exclusion from GI Bill, mass incarceration. Understand that what he made a statement in on PBS was it don't exist, that we need to do away with the word. Yet it's more black men that sit in prison than all race of women in the entire world. That's the data. Now, one thing I want to point out, we ain't saying that Robinson ain't a guy that we don't need to be saying, hey, I support what you saying right there. But I need to know where you stand at on what you are stating. Because you always got to make sure these people ain't pulling the bait and switch. You always got to make sure they are willing to stand on that square. ADOS I'm reading something else from the chat. I'm reading somebody else comment from the chat. ADOS is going to stick with his message on indoctrination, and let's keep it simple. I agree. It can be simple. I think it could be a simple thing, but I think we carrying the weight of a lot more than that makes it a kind of unsimple. Let's say we got behind this guy, right? Let's say we got behind him, we support him, we were to win at his back. Even they did an article putting him as a Klan, had a Klan outfit on him, and because he said that I think he said that white supremacy didn't exist, and so they put a Klan outfit on him. Let's say we became the win at his back. With the things I done pointed out, and what I try to do is be as fair as possible when it comes to this guy. Because that's what we try to do, is be as fair. We want that school system held accountable for what they teaching our kids. That's without a shadow of a doubt. The conflicts come when you get the person that's in the spot that's talking about doing it. How well rounded are they to do it? And how far is you willing to push it if you're willing to undermine the institution of slavery and say it don't exist anymore? Because we got the data that says it does. So we the win at his back. We say, hey, we with you. We gonna ride with you. Now, on one hand, he doing something that we say, hey, we support. On the other hand, though, he's undermining everything he's doing over here because he don't understand that systematic racism is tied to the school too. If you undermine systematic racism from the institution of slavery, you undermine your conversation about indoctrination in the schoolhouse. Within the schoolhouse, they are connected. We know they are connected. You can't have one without the other. He in this, another thing he made pointing out on PBS was that people only want to talk about the bad of America and not the good of America. Well, the data show has been very little good, and the good that it have been haven't made ADOS people whole in this country. We still haven't been made whole in this country. We are still fighting for things that we should have been had. Voting rights. We still hammering about voting rights. Think about what I'm saying. It's 2021, and we still dealing with voting rights. Robinson is saying systematic racism don't exist no more, but black people still having a problem being able to vote. Just saying. To me, what must happen for Robinson to show that he do understand a glimpse that he's also been indoctrinated, because he went through them same schools. Because like I said, he was born right in Greensboro. And he got some indoctrination done to him. And then indoctrination don't stop in school. It's also out with our daily walking around. Things we watch, things we listening to. Because those things work on the unconscious mind. Still a form of indoctrination. It's I would say having him better explain, or do he even understand? Do he understand that one conflicts with the other and that they are connected? And do he understand that he himself is also connected to slavery? Now, and the only reason I say that, because the fear here is, let's say, like I said before, we get behind him, and we think he gonna do the right thing with that data he get from that school, and you go in and you push him with him and you bring in the information, and when he get the information in, he don't really like the result of the information, because it undermines who he is and what he stands for. I mean, like I feel he need to do more of reaching out to the grassroots people. I like to see the discussion he would have with someone like members of ADOS, what that conversation would look like. And I'll repeat it again. We definitely know something need to be done in school, because it's a lot going on there, and there's a lot of indoctrination going on there. The thing we got to remember is, this man the man to deliver what we want to see delivered. Some say he may have even won his election, because when he first started running, he spoke directly to the people. He spoke truth. But he also, after he got elected, he came back and re-stepped and said, maybe I need to keep my opinions. I need to understand I represent everyone. And here at ADOS, again, we understand when you use those terms, it means you may not want to do anything specific for a specific group that need specific things did for them. I'm going to the chat, and I'm just reading some people in the chat. I got a chat says ADOS didn't out him in power, and he fully understands that. So where does his loyalty lie? That could be another thing, definitely. Because he know who voted him in. And being he's a Republican, we know more than likely was a lot of white people that voted him in. So, and it may not be a problem for us. It depending to me how far he willing to reach across that aisle to really connect with ADOS people. And that's my, I mean, I think it's everybody concerned. How far are you willing to go and how far are you willing to reach across that aisle? I'm reading something here. It says he has a government website that you can send in documentation and indoctrination, discrimination, bias. I went on and they write. I went on that website today and I read over it. They do got where you can put information in it, so that's a good thing. That can show he reaching out. Um, so yeah, it's that I went on that website and it definitely had that up there. Um, so when we it's a Robinson is going to be a tough conversation because he kind of conflicts with himself, and I don't want to be standing here representing for and to try to lead my people in the right way, and this man kind of might not be the right one. So I want to know up front, what is he really willing to do with this data he receives, and how much re-education is he willing to understand when he say he's a conservative. Um, I think that's one of the things I would like to know from him personally. Um, I'm reading. I'm going in the chat again to read some. Said if you remove the term systematic, they try to make it about individual choice around government and sponsor racism. That's 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 why I say they tied, and he definitely does not understand they tied. So that's why one of my fears is, what would he be willing to do with that information when he understands that systematic racism is the data you're gonna be pulling from these places. And if you remove systematic racism, you remove the very fight you saying you trying to win. Racism is an institutional thing. We experience it again when we be pulled over by the police. We experience it when we buy homes. We experience it whatever we do, we are faced with it because we have been locked out. Um, so we and one of the things that we may work on as an organization, as a group, is reaching out to him, bringing him in to sit down and talk with us. One thing would definitely, I feel, would turn us all off if he wouldn't reach back out and say, "Hey, I would like to sit down and talk with y'all." Cause I don't think nothing good would come from it at all then anyway. Because if he ain't willing to sit down with the people that he talking about that he worked for, we can almost cancel the bet on him doing any good with the information we send in to him. But don't get me wrong, I think we should send in the information. I think we should try to hold him to the fire what he said about fixing the indoctrination going on in schools. So I think we should do that. I think we should definitely do it. We got somebody in the chat said, I voted for Mark Robinson for his campaign. The Second Amendment was very important. And I'm a Democrat. So and here at ADOS, we very well understand that. We understand the key is understanding that we understand that we can have a Republican and his views can be better than a Democrat. And so we understand that, because what we going after is who willing to do the work of getting those policies in place that help us. So we get it. The I guess what I'm saying is that the thing we don't want to happen is it's become where we don't look at it both ways, because this man do say some things that's problematic as well as saying some things that we saying, hey, that's a good one. I'm on it. I'm with that. We get it. We own that. We like that. We get that part. But we got a problem over here too. And we want it to be simple. I think we want everything to be kind of simple. But at the end, it ain't really simple because, like I said before, if you're fighting against something that undermines what you're doing over here, it's all is lost at that point. So our fight is a very, very well, very well critical thinking fight. Would I love for that man to be standing on his square, standing up for my kids to get the right education in that school without those teachers indoctrinating them on things that ain't backed up by fact but by opinion? Man, 100% I would. I would. But I got to pay attention. If you're gonna take away with one hand while saying you giving with the other, I got to pay attention to that because it becomes a problem then. It's a problem. And we can't, it's never as simple as we would like for it to be. Is someone in the chat said, we had LBJ, known racist, signed the civil rights legislation. He was a known racist. But the key with him, he understood that black poor poverty was not white poverty. See, so we know it's a delicate balance that we playing with when it comes to this game. That's why we got to be careful how we move. We got to always be, no matter how bad we want something, we got to make sure it don't undermine us somewhere else, because that's a lot of policies have done that to us in the past. They gave on one end and took on another. So we got to know that this political policy thing is something we got to be critical about. We got to make sure we cover both sides. We got to make sure we cover both sides. We can never, ever just walk away and think, oh, well, he said this good thing, and I ain't really concerned what he's saying over there. We know we can't do that, because he could have said something over here that's devastating that he may not know. And trust indeed, I'm 100%. I can, from the articles, he don't know. He don't know. And all you got to do is understand that if you saying you trying to eliminate something that's absolutely needed to defend this over here, you ain't connecting the dots. And it is definitely chess, not checkers. All the time you're gonna hear me say that, because the key to our goal, to our success, is to become chess players and stop being chess pieces. In that process, it's gonna be conversation that goes deeper than even what we having right here. Understand, my conversation don't just start from me. It starts from all the information I know before this conversation even come up. Before he opens his mouth, because I'm working and researching it and digging in the data and doing the work to know what I need to know to bring forth what I need for my people. And first it starts with killing the do for self attitude, the do for self way of thinking. So if we understand that also with one of the mental problems in our group is do for selferism, and it's bad. He early in the chat, somebody pointed out that he may be self-centered about himself, because he brought up the fact that she wanted to do the report on him. Teacher told her to do it on Tupac. We don't know for a fact that he may not only say that, may turn him towards the school just because of his own ego. You see what I'm saying? He may did it for his own ego. So that's what I mean by we must be careful. We want to pay attention to Robinson. We want to reach out to him. We want to see is he the kind of person that'll sit down and have the conversation. Because I mean, it don't matter if you ADOS like me. If you won't sit down and talk with me, what good does it do me at the end of the day anyway? It don't do me any good. It don't do me any good. So, and that's what we got to know. It does me no good if he won't sit down to that table, if he won't reach across the aisle for me, for my Pacific justice. Even if he said something and if he ain't gonna reach across that aisle at me, what made me believe he gonna stand on this square when it comes to this? I can't. So, the school system definitely got to be looked into. Our kids, we definitely got to sit down, and it starts with yourself too. I don't never want to leave us out of the picture. And I said it before. It ain't started. Indoctrination didn't start with your kids. It started with you. And well, it didn't even start with you. It started long before you. The indoctrination. So the question I would ask everyone on this call right now: are you willing to look at yourself and say that I do have some do for self ways? I do have things that I say that conflicts. How willing are you to look at yourself and build yourself to be what you need to be for your group to be elevated in this country? Or are you more concerned with your own individual need? Now, when I say your own individual need, it goes back to politics again. Let's say, you somebody that did go to college, and Joe Biden comes out and say, hey, I'm going to forgive student debt. Understand that 84% of us don't go to school, go to college. Only 16%. But you went to college, you got the student debt. Joe Biden forgives the debt. Do that build wealth? It don't build wealth. So that's what I mean when I say we got to be careful with our do for self ways of thinking. We got to be critical at every critique. Trust indeed, all of us are here want a different outcome. That's what we fighting for, a different outcome. And we must change the conversation if we want a different outcome. We must hold the fire. We must put the pressure on these politicians to change the outcome. And we can't ever escape the fact that the dots are connected, even if the politician don't understand the dots are connected. Because we know for a fact that the dots, they don't understand how to connect the dots. If they understood how to connect the dots, we'd already been elevated. Reparations will be getting paid. We'll be having a black agenda. They would have been made us whole in this country, but they haven't. And they continue to exclude us. So that's why I'm so critiqued on his conversation. That's why I'm so critiqued on everything he's doing versus one thing he's doing. I can't just worry about one thing he said without looking at his whole perspective of things. So I advise all of us to always be willing to look at the people whole perspective of things. Not just go with them because they're Democrat. Not just be against them because they're Republican. But be willing to look at the whole perspective. It's a point where you got to be willing to do it. And I think we will if our people become well understanding that this conversation I'm having is about wealth. It's about us being elevated. Everything we do here is about wealth. But I know a lot of my people think the conversation of wealth is me sitting down, look, man, I got these tennis shoes here, right? I bought them for $5. I'm going to sell them for $20 because I'm a hustler like that. That's what we used to a conversation being when we think we talking about making money. We talking about wealth, though. We ain't just relying on the income. We talking about having wealth. We ain't talking about a side hustle. We talking about ways we can get these people redistribution of wealth that we were locked out of, that Mr. Robinson himself may not even understand. So we got to be willing to say, hey, no problem. Sit down, talk with us. We ain't had no problem talking with that man. We don't have no problem seeing can we change his perception, because that's what we want to be able to do. So we got to see it all. We got to look at ourselves. We got to be able to look at ourselves and say, what do I really value in my life? What do I see as important and not important? I was talking earlier to someone today, and I made the statement. I said, it's never shocking to me how what we do and what we find important a lot of times is not even important. And if I come to you and say, this is what is important, this is what's going to make it where you can be able to pay that light bill eventually, you see. But what you entertain by over there, it ain't gonna never do that. So perspective is everything. Being able to connect the dots is everything. Understanding that you are a descendant of slaves, you're not the beneficiary of slave owners. Knowing who you are change the way you see things. If you don't know who you are, and I always repeat these things because I think we gotta hear it. Not knowing who you are, they can make you be anything. You might think you're a Hispanic. You might think you're a Jew. You might think, I don't know what you may think, because you don't know who you are. Once you know who you are, you carve out who you are and what you are. So I'm going to the chat, and I say, somebody in the chat says, well, Leroy said in the chat, how do you reach someone wrong? Teacher, open mind, listening, not truth, facts and data, common sense. So, and that's exactly how you reach them. You know, I mean, you reach them by someone wrong by teaching. And that's what I mean when I say we reach out to them and try to say, listen, maybe you ain't thought these things through. Maybe you don't understand they connect. But I think that's definitely a good way to start. We bring him the education. We bring him the data. We bring him the facts. We get him to open his mind and listen to us. I ain't saying I wouldn't give him the benefit of a doubt. I just would like to know if we wouldn't know that until we do it. So I'm saying keep your eye on this man for sure. Keep up with what he doing. Go on that website where he got his website at. If somebody could put that in the chat, that website for me, where people could go to and put those complaints in, I think that would be a good thing that people could go to and see that. So they can, if they here in North Carolina, they'll know, hey, I can put my complaint in here. So that's a good thing to be able to do. You know, you'll know where you can go take your complaints to. So if anybody could post it in the chat, it will help some people to know, hey, now I got a place I can go to and voice my, once again, that's a good thing. But one of the things we got to know, we want to see, once people start doing this, what would be his result? What would be his response? Will he change his talking tone when he's standing there in them presentations and say, I found out things that I was not even aware of myself? So that's definitely one of the things we want to do. So I encourage people to go there and put your complaints in. You can call him, see if he talk to you. So definitely do it. Yeah, and that's a I'm reading from the chat again. Johnny state he has to be open to learn. And Johnny, that's that's the biggest battle ADOS face every day with our own family members. Are you open to learn? Because it's gonna be hard to educate or to change the mind of someone that is already has a closed mind. I mean, it ain't no way to make you see the light if you're going to keep your eyes closed from the light. You see, you got to open your eyes to be able to see the light. And the mind works the same way. And I can sit in front of you all day long saying, the way you've been thinking is wrong. If you close your ears off to me saying it and never ever say, well, let me sit down and read over some of this information this man has given us, and verify. Only then will you be able to be open-minded to the truth. So, and being open-minded brings forth truth. And what we should be seeking is truth. Without a shadow of a doubt. what ADOS people has experienced across this nation, from one end to the other, is terrible. We still experience it to this day. It's 2021. We still are hindered by it. So where I stand is for my people at all times. And at all times, by me standing for my people, I must protect my people from things that may not be the best for them. But at the same time, educate them how they can proceed when those things are even that way. I'm reading something else from the chat. It said a lot of times when our people get successful, they close their mind to the idea how someone else can fail. Man, ain't that something? A lot of times when our people become successful, they close their mind to the idea of how someone else can fail. Do you know how many of us right here on this call, right here, that's present in the show right now, that done dealt with that? How your own family will look down their nose at you because they up here and you down here. And they not even realize they still tied to you. It don't matter what job they got. It don't matter what income they got coming in their house. Because they still tied and connected to you. But because they doing better than you, they look down their nose at you. And that's where the conversation becomes hard to have. Because this conversation I'm having with you right now, people that think they successful, they think what I'm doing right here and right now is selling out and copying out. Oh, he just complaining about nothing. Ain't nothing going on there. I don't even know what that Negro talking about. See, that's why I say it's so important for us to understand the mental chain that's been indoctrinated to us. And when I say mental, understand nobody is excluded from. No matter how successful they is or unsuccessful they is, we all have been exposed to it. We all have been exposed to it. Now, I read an article the other day. White lady. A white lady had a tenant, ADOS man renting from her, where the ADOS man fell on bad times. Health, his job, everything. And he was going to her, letting her know, listen, I can't pay my rent. I'm just I got this health condition. I got to go to the doctor again. I can't take no more days off work. I'm going to get fired. He had child support taken out on him, just going through it. And the white woman was working with him. She even started trying to go to his family members to try to come up with the rent money to help him. She went to his pastor. I think she ended up getting like $600. Still wasn't enough to cover his rent. She eventually went to her own family and she came up with the money. Now, this woman talked about how this made her realize how important it was for ADOS people to get reparations. Now, what she did, people will say, oh, that's a good thing she did. Bless her heart. You see? Now, what you don't see and don't understand is the mental effect, the mental impact it had on that ADOS man. And some people say it should have been a good thing. Well, we got to be critical thinkers. And being a critical thinker, you can always push back. And it's always a way to understand the effect that whites have on blacks in the first place. Without her paying his rent, it's an effect that whites already have on black people. Now, with her paying his rent, that effect just been elevated. So understand, if I reach out to this brother and say, brother, I need you to stand with ADOS in the fight for reparations and a black agenda, I need you to call your local senator, congressperson, and help me with getting them to pass this bill that we're working on. That brother gonna look at me now and say, man, listen, that conversation you have, man, you talking about a lot of hate against white people. I ain't talking about hate for white people. I'm talking about love for my people. And having love for my people don't make me have to have no hate for white people. You see, if you misconstrue truth with hate, that is a mental effect that white supremacy have had over our people. Now, the reason that brother, they're going to feel this way because this white woman has done such a lovely thing for him. Now, at the same time, this white woman came out and said, this is why I got in support for reparations, because I saw what this man here is dealing with, and I understood he came from slavery, that he was locked out of with. Now, here at this present moment, he's getting beat down by a system that's been built against him in the first place. But I can go to my family and get money for his rent. And he can't go to his family and get nothing. Because she said she went to some of this man family members. And family members was telling her, like, listen, I don't know how I'm going to help him with his rent. I'm struggling with my rent. That's the difference in coming from slaves and coming from slave owners. Now, this white woman, what she did, people say it's a good thing. But it's a double-edged sword. Because what just happened is, he won't stand and fight for his people no more. And he'll cherish white people. And he'll cherish them because what she just did for him. So he will never be able to free himself because he don't understand. No matter how nice the gesture that white woman did for you there, she come from the beneficiaries of slave owners. And for you to be free, she got to fight totally for you now. And she may have to give up some of the things that she gained from your disadvantage. That is why I say it's so severe. It's so severe for us to understand when I say it's time to become chess players and stop being chess pieces. It's time to put our emotions to the side, because emotions you never get a good outcome from being an emotional. I know when I talk here, I get loud, I get passionate for my people, but the passion comes from the data, the facts, and the history, and the policies that I know that brings it out. But the way I think and the way I see things is driven by that information, not from an emotional place. When I say what the white woman done for the man was a good thing, but at the same time it was a double-edged sword, because now we need him to fight for us, but he will become a pivoting point that his family will even start to saying, well, white people do things for you. They can help you. Understand why they can help you and why your own family cannot help you. Your family comes from slaves. That white woman or white man family comes from slave owners. Financially, that money is still in their family. The same with your family. That slavery is still in your family. And if you can't connect the dots to that, you're going to stay lost. Until you can understand that you come from those slaves and they come from those slave owners, you will never get in a position where you really fight for your group. And what ADOS here is doing is trying to get you in a position to fight for your group at all levels. The schoolhouse, the entertainment platform, political platform. We want you advocating for your people on all platforms, because they're locking us out on all platforms. So I'm gonna go to break, and after break, I'm gonna take some calls. And that number you can call in at is let me give it to you here. It's gonna be 351-888-6356. I say it again, it's 351-888-6356. And we're gonna go to break, and after break, we're gonna take some calls. And see what your opinion is on Mr. Robinson. Hello, we gonna take some calls and see if anybody would like to call in and see what they would like. Anybody else would like to speak to it. It's the number's in the chat, 351-888-6356. I'm waiting on anyone to call in. One of the things I want hold on a minute, let me turn this music down in the background. Hold on 1 second. Let's see. All right. So so yeah, I got we could take some calls. So if anybody would like to call in, you can. We another thing I want to say that we definitely want to accomplish here is being able to know that we can think for ourselves, to know that it's okay to make to make a mistake, to understand that this systematic oppression we were put in, they didn't get it right every time, and believe me, they didn't agree every time, but they agreed where it mattered, and they understood that. They understood that we can have a disagreement, but we must agree on the ultimate goal. And the ultimate goal to the forefathers that they want to call these men that when America was first being established, these these slave owners, most of them, the truth be told was that they didn't always see eye to eye. What they did see eye to eye on was their group being at the hierarchy of this society. What we are trying to educate our people to know, to understand, is that we too should be part of the hierarchy of this society. That people should be riding through our neighborhoods at mazed at our homes. If any way possible you feel that you are not owed that, you're not thinking clearly. We got a caller in the call in. We'll
Can you
take
hear
the
yours
call.
up just a little bit?
Hello? Hello, caller. What we are trying to educate our people to know, to understand, is that we too should be part of the society. Caller, can you hear me? That people should be riding. Caller, can you hear me? Hello? I don't think. Hold on just 1 minute.
There is one other participant in the conference. Please announce yourself.
You know that the information you're putting out is great.
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I don't know why it's not working. My background is down.
So look, turn your background down
Can
and
you
you
hear
can
me?
hear me. Hello? There's one other participant in the conference. Please announce yourself. You know that the information you're putting out is great.
It's laggy.
Yeah, can you hear me?
That's all I wanted to say.
Okay. Alrighty. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to call in and let you know that what you're doing is good, and this is
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. We're gonna keep doing the work. Caller. Do you hear me? Yeah, I think he did. All right, we had a caller that just called in. Um, we could take some more calls too, if anybody else would like to call in. Um, so that is one of the things I want to point out definitely to us as a group to be understanding of that is we got another call coming in. Hold on just a minute. Hello? You're gonna have to turn your background down.
Welcome to the conferencing service.
Hello? Caller, can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
awesome.
This is Yolanda.
Yes, I hear you, Miss Yolanda. I hear you. Can you hear me?
What I want to know, first of all, I would like to say uh, Adolph William. He's, speaking a good message tonight. But what I'd like to know is when I'm talking to our people and try to get them to understand what Adolph is about and the statistics and how we need to stand up for ourselves and each other, what is the first thing that I need to say, or what type of resources that you can share with us to get our people to understand who is Adolph, what is Adolph, and what the fight is about?
Okay, that's a good question. That's a good question. Um, so the first thing I would say, is go to ados101.com. And I repeat again, go to ados101.com. I always say that's the beginning of your journey to understanding ADOS. You'll find our two founders up there. You'll find Yvette Cornell and Antonio Moore, as well as following our show here in North Carolina. You can follow their show. And you can even watch their older shows where you can go back and look and kind of come up to date
Alexa, hang up.
with what we got going on. So the caller was basically asking, hold up, let me turn this. The caller was basically asking, what are some things you could do to get people to tell them who ADOS is? First, ADOS stands for American Descendants of Slavery. Basic, simple said, we are the native blacks from the 1600s. We the oldest native group here. But we are the descendants of slaves as well. So as I was telling her, you can go to ados101.com. This will give you the full understanding of who ADOS is. We're a political movement. And this political movement, we are trying to educate our people based on data, our lineage. And our lineage is very important because you need to know who you are. What separates you? And when I say separates you, it don't mean that You ain't got to deal with no other people. What it means is you now know who you are and why you stand on your square for who you are. Nothing wrong with who they are, but you got to know who you is to move amongst them. So that's one of the things with ADOS. If you go to our website, ados101.com, you will find it will break down what we are. And like I said, we are a movement. Our founders are Yvette Cornell and Antonio Moore. And they have shows. Yvette has shows on Monday nights and Wednesday nights. Antonio has his shows on Thursdays. Sometimes on Fridays. But this is who we are. We are fighting. We have changed the conversation around reparation. We have moved the needle of reparation when the discussion is heard or comes up. So this is who we are, and this is the group we are, and what I go here at breaking the mental chain is to break a lot of the mental chains of the things that we deal with in our day-to-day lives that we may never have took the time to stop and really think about when it comes to our people, our loved ones. So yes, and I think that needs to be done severely. We must sit down and start to question, why do I think like I think? Why do I see things like I think? Because understand, nobody was exempt from the indoctrination. Especially if you ADOS. I share my life and my story, my experience. I told you about my mom and dad. My life, I've been incarcerated. I understand when I was younger, I didn't want to be poor. And I was going to do whatever it took not to be poor. So I started out the wrong way that landed me in trouble. Now, during that process, I did a lot of reading, trying to understand why, as I looked around in the situation that I was in, it was so many black men there. Firsthand, I got to see that data that a lot of people talk about but ain't lived. So what I mean when I say they talk about it but they ain't lived it, I lived it. When I talk about being more black men in prison than all race of women in the entire world, I was one of those black men. And I could have very well, at this point in my life, I could turn around and say, if I was a do for self, I could turn around and say, hey, I accomplished this all on my own. I did it. You could do it. I could be that kind of person. But I understand the system that we are in and how this system has been set up, because I've lived through what this system is set up like. This incarceration system is set up so that you repeat to go back. Everything is set up that you go back. And it's set up to the point where more going to go back than more than don't. Why? Because it's set up that way. First of all, once you get in trouble with the law, you got a felony. It's already hard just being a black man to get a job. Now you're also a black man with a felony. So now it just got 30 times as hard. But not only that, you get put on probation. And you get put on that probation. And the thing that probation, you got to pay to be on that probation. But you can't find a job. You come from descendants of slavery. You a slave. You an ex-slave. Now they telling you got to pay to be on probation. Do you understand what kind of trap they got us in here? And everybody turning a blind eye to it? Even our own people turning a blind eye to it? It's no system rigged up as well as this American oppression system is. Because understand, you're denying a man a job and at the same time saying, hey, I need you to come up with the money to pay me for you to be on probation to do free work for me. Are we not paying attention to what they are telling you? I took years off your life. You are a descendant of slave. I'm going to make you work for me for free, plus pay me at the same time. And somehow we still ain't connecting the dots, because everything is connecting the dots, to why so many black men keep going back. It's obvious. That's where they want you at. That's where they want us at. See? But as we grow to these critical thinkers, we start to understand this thing. We start to see it better. We start to understand how it's been set up against us. And then we start to understand how policies must be passed that are specific to our needs. Because ain't no data showing. They got this anti-Asian stuff going on right. It's no data showing that it's one group in this country that's anti-ADOS. We are the group that's everything directed towards. Understand, Asians make more money in this country than white folks when we talk about income. Most Asians make more money than white folks when we talk about income. Income and wealth is two different things. You need to understand that. When I say they make more money than whites, I'm not saying they got more wealth than whites, because they don't got more wealth. But when it comes to making money for the income, they got more income than white folks. A lot of times they make more money. So what we got to become aware of that's obvious is that we got a Pacific group with a Pacific problem. And it's going to take Pacific policies to fix those problems. Plain and simple. It's plain and simple. It's no other way to fix what we are dealing with. Anytime you take a man and lock him in prison and you let that man out on probation and you tell that man that man had to pay while not being allowed to have a job because he got a felony, but he got to pay to be on the probation and go out and do free work. Come on, man. I mean, we got to be able to understand, man, this is a plot to destroy us. And it's working well. And they throw a lot of moving pieces in it. Right now, the biggest moving pieces is anti-Asian to cover up anti-ADOS. To shut down the ADOS conversation. To turn ADOS into the person that's trying to hurt Asians. But no data supports it. There's no data supporting it. When you look at these videos, biggest of the time, 80% of the time, what you seeing attacking an Asian is another white person. Yet they point at black people for being the ones that bother them. Yet they don't live in our community, but their businesses reside in our community. Yet they suck all the wealth out of our community, take it over to the white community, and saying, I am the one that they got a problem with. You see, it's a serious game being played. So we must become critical thinkers to be able to see this game. And to understand, me standing on truth, I can't worry about if that truth hurt your feelings. Because if I don't speak that truth, it may cost my son, my daughter, their life. Period. If I don't speak this truth, it may cost my son, my daughters, their life. And that's the same thing for you. So you may need to sit down and come to terms with that. So when you worry about their feelings over your truth, know that you jeopardize the lives of your kids, your nieces, your nephews, your brothers, your sisters, your aunts, your uncles. Yeah. It's something you got to think about. So when I sit here for my group. The problems of my people. Because that's going to be the only way to fix the problems of my people. Is to admit that these problems are with my people. I'm looking at something in the chat from Union, and she said, I never looked at the system until you spoke of it. That is so true. And that's the purpose of speaking this truth. And I'm reading something else from this chat from Johnny. Johnny says, we also have to be able to relate our community issues to the political system issues of history and the present. Very true. We got to be able to do it. We can't run around with this magical way of thinking that you're gonna fix something without doing some work to fix it, or sitting around thinking, well, Wim over there, he own it, he should get it done because he own it. No, I need you to be the wind at my back, and when you need me, I need to be able to be the wind at your back. That's the way this thing works. That's how you fix it, and that's how you win it. I can't stand in a room alone without people supporting it and saying we stand in solidarity with you and get nothing done. And neither can you. So I gotta be able to be the wind at your back, and you gotta be able to be the wind at my back. At the end of the day, we gotta be able to chew bubblegum and walk at the same time. So I work. I'm still presenting you these shows. I have kids. I have a fiance. I still got to make them happy, and I'm still doing these shows. So what I'm saying to you is we got to be able to walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. If we find an excuse, that excuse become dominant over everything. Okay? I think we got another caller here. Let me turn them up. Hello? Can you hear me, caller? Hello? Can you hear me, caller? I think my the way I got my phone set up, I think it's a delay between the times of me really actually talking to the person that's on the phone. I may have to change that. Because normally when I ain't live and I call, and I tested this before, it works right. But I think it's something between the delay of being live and having it on at the same time.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me, caller?
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you through my headphones.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not hearing anything from the phone.
Oh. Well,
Yeah,
if you
well,
speak,
I
you can
got
be
my
heard.
headset on, so we'll work with that.
Okay. Go ahead, caller. You can talk. We definitely gonna have to change up the way that the phone set up, cause it's a delay between the two. So yeah. Um.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Can you still hear me? Mm.
Yeah, so, yes.
So go ahead,
Okay,
Tasha. You
yeah,
can
it's
go
the
ahead.
lag time between the phone and the video, but I'll go ahead and make my statement. Um, yeah, so I want to touch point on the what you stated about um, education starting at home.
Mhm.
Yeah, so yeah, I can still hear you. Yeah, I just want to go ahead and make a statement since there's a lag time between the video and the phone. The statement that you stated regarding, the statement that you made regarding education starting at home, I definitely agree to a large extent because a lot of us have family and sharecropping, and they'll even tell stories about eminent domain and urban renewal. But the thing is that a lot of them, they still have their issues for whatever reason. And, I think, one of the important things about ADOS movement is that it forces you to not only understand the history, but try to understand the history in a context to make sense of the data. Because when you talk to older relatives, they have the actual experience, but the question is, do they have the experience in the larger context of white supremacy and, how that's connected to policy? And that's the missing piece, is understanding how the policy has connected to those historical events. So that's, pretty much what I wanted to say, because those things are not necessarily covered at the school. And that's the education that we have to provide to the greater public. So that's all I want to say for now. But if you have anything to speak on that,
Okay. So
I think, that probably be something to address. Okay. I'm finished for now.
so yeah, the caller is right. We definitely we and what she's speaking to is definitely true. We at home is definitely where it starts, and even though those people live through what we are talking about, they don't sometimes themselves understand it. It's like I told somebody one time that you got baby boomers, right? And a lot of time their conversation is stuck in a um in a in a in a like a 1960 conversation. Meaning, when I say like a 1960 conversation, they still think what they did to make it in 1960 can still work in 2021. And they truly don't really understand how government played a very strong role in their success story. So, what do I mean? Reconstruction. Baby boomers went through Reconstruction. Reconstruction had to do with blacks being able to get jobs having pensions. They did not have to go to college. They got trained on the job. See, these things help them build wealth, mean become a homeowner. Maybe even have rental property. You see? But the way they relate their information to their child is as if you need to do what I did. Well, what you ain't telling them, because you didn't understand it. Government did that for you. It wasn't really nothing you did. See, the government passed bills and policies that actually elevated you. But what you didn't do in return for your child is you didn't protect those policies, because you didn't understand those policies made it possible. And that your job was to be teaching at home to your child how to vote and protect those policies, how to apply pressure to people so that those policies would stay in place for him or her to. That was your job. It didn't happen. But what did happen is you built this do for self attitude as if you was the great accomplished. But don't get me wrong, we got to go to the mental slavery again. Media played a heavy role in you believing that blacks had arrived in your era, because they gave you the Bill Cosby's. You see, they gave you the Cosby Show. They showed an image of black people that have arrived, when at the same time they were stripping you of everything. They were stripping you of everything, and you was fighting for nothing. They gave you an Oprah Winfrey. You see? And with that Oprah Winfrey, it gave you a sense of, once again, we have arrived. Now understand, when I say that a lot of baby boomers didn't protect the same policies that they benefited from. In 1920, ADOS people descending from slavery had about 20 million acres of land. 20 million acres of land. Now remember, this is in 1920. Not very long after slavery was some called abolished. Even though we got records that show slavery was still going on up into the 1960s. But that's another show for another time. But anyway, 1920, blacks was able to have 20 million acres of land. Here it is 100 years later, and they got less than 1 million acres. Nobody talking about it but ADOS. Nobody talking about it but ADOS. And yet we catching all the heat because we calling out how much has been lost from the manipulation of what been gained. How much been lost from the manipulation of what's been gained. A delusion of something has been gained. When no land, you can't have any ownership. You need land to have ownership. We must be able to understand how to connect these dots as how these things come about. If we don't do that, and understand how severe and the time it is to be doing that, we are in a major problem. We need to be able to see it. We need to be able to understand that it's down to our survival time. So I think I'm gonna bring the show to it. Well, I know I'm gonna bring the show to an end. I thank you all for joining. Once again, if you're in here, please subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. It don't cost you a dime. Share this video. Share it with family members. Bring them to the table. Have the conversation. So hope everybody have a good night. I want to leave you with something that I leave all warriors, because I feel we all got a warrior in us. And sometimes some of us had to dig a little deeper to get to that warrior. I want you to stay strong. I want you to stay focused. And I want you to do whatever it takes to keep moving that line forward. Don't let nobody discourage you from fighting and loving yourself and loving your people. Because we're going to need soldiers in this fight. All right. Y'all have a good night.